By the early 1830s, Jamaica's plantation system is still intact, but it is no longer secure. Sugar production continues, but soil exhaustion and market instability reduce profits. Enslaved labor remains the foundation of the economy, yet discipline now operates under permanent strain. Missionary networks circulate news of reform debates in Britain. Literacy spreads through chapels. Expectations shift faster than conditions. The system survives through routine while losing confidence in its future. The strike associated with Sam Sharpe in late 1831 exposes this instability. What begins as a coordinated refusal to work spreads across western parishes. It does not remove slavery, but it shows that labor can act collectively. The colonial government restores order through force, yet the scale of the response reveals the scale of the risk. Thousands of enslaved workers participate. Hundreds are punished. Control is recovered, but the cost is high and visible. After the initial stoppages, violence expands unevenly. Cane fields are set alight. Boiling houses and estate buildings are destroyed. In some areas, clashes occur between enslaved groups and estate militias. In others, resistance remains passive. There is no single command structure and no unified military plan. The movement grows through local decisions shaped by fear, opportunity, and rumors of freedom. The plantation system interprets this not as labor protest but as rebellion. The colonial government declares martial law. Regular troops, militia units, and mounted patrols are mobilized. The objective is not negotiation but containment. Roads are secured, villages are searched. Suspected leaders are detained, trials are conducted quickly. Executions and floggings are carried out publicly. The state relies on terror to restore predictability. This response succeeds in ending organized resistance, but it produces a new problem. The violence required to restore order contradicts the claim that slavery is stable and humane. Reports of executions, destroyed chapels, and mass punishments are recorded by missionaries and transmitted to Britain. Written accounts replace planter assurances. Information travels faster than justification. The plantation economy depends on routine labor, not permanent war. When order is restored, estates resume production, but supervision remains heavy and costly. Militia service disrupts work schedules. Guards replace drivers. Trust erodes between managers and laborers. Control shifts from routine discipline to emergency posture. For missionaries, the war confirms that enslaved people interpret religious teaching as a claim to justice rather than submission. Chapels had provided networks of communication and meeting spaces. After the rebellion, many are closed or destroyed. Missionaries are interrogated. Teaching is restricted. Religion is treated as political infrastructure rather than private belief. The enslaved population absorbs a different lesson. Collective action can disrupt the plantation economy but cannot yet defeat it. Punishment is severe. Survival requires caution. Resistance returns to slower forms. Illness, flight, and work delay. The war does not end pressure. It changes how pressure is applied. In Britain, the rebellion becomes evidence rather than argument. Abolitionists use reports from Jamaica to show that slavery produces instability and requires violence to sustain. They describe mass participation, rapid spread, and the destruction of property. They argue that gradual reform cannot manage a system already near collapse. Planters respond by blaming missionaries and literacy. They argue that religion has taught enslaved people to disobey. They claim that outside interference has created false expectations. The debate shifts from whether slavery is moral to whether it is governable. The British government now faces a calculation rather than a principle. Jamaica is valuable, but it is expensive to hold. The cost of troops, compensation, and administration rises. Rebellion has shown that repression will be recurrent. The choice is not between slavery and harmony, but between slavery and managed transition. The rebellion, therefore, accelerates decisions already in motion. Parliamentary debates on emancipation intensify. Compensation schemes are designed to prevent planter revolt. Apprenticeship systems are proposed to control labor during transition. The aim is not to reward rebellion, but to prevent its repetition. For Jamaica, this means that the end of slavery will be organized from above, rather than seized from below. The plantation system will be dismantled through law rather than destroyed through war. Enslaved people will become apprentices. Estates will remain intact. Sugar production will continue under modified terms. The Baptist War does not win freedom on the battlefield. It changes the timetable. It forces the British state to accept that slavery cannot be stabilized. A system that requires mass executions to survive cannot be presented as permanent. After the war, Jamaica becomes quieter but more tightly supervised. Troops remain. Courts act quickly. Movement is restricted. At the same time, administrators prepare for abolition. Registers are updated. Labor contracts are discussed. Missionaries return under regulation. Control becomes transitional rather than indefinite. The war's importance lies in its scale and its consequences. It is the largest slave uprising in British Caribbean history. It involves tens of thousands of people across multiple parishes. It requires the full machinery of colonial repression. It exposes the contradiction between plantation order and imperial reform. What ends slavery is not the burning of estates or the killing of overseers. It is the demonstration that slavery has become a permanent security problem. The rebellion does not overthrow the system. It convinces the state that the system cannot be safely maintained. For planters, the loss is gradual. They receive compensation, they keep land, they adapt to wage labor and tenancy. For formerly enslaved people, freedom arrives through law but under supervision. Apprenticeship limits movement and choice. Authority remains on the estates. The Baptist War therefore marks a shift in how power is exercised. Force gives way to legislation. Punishment gives way to regulation. The plantation economy survives, but its foundation changes. The rebellion is decisive not because it wins militarily, but because it removes the option of delay. After 1831, slavery is no longer a question of improvement. It is a question of removal. Jamaica enters the final years of slavery governed by fear of repetition and plans for transition. The war does not end conflict. It ends certainty. The system continues, but it does so knowing that it cannot return to the past. The Baptist War stands as the moment when slavery becomes unsustainable as policy. It transforms resistance into evidence and violence into argument. The plantation system remains in place for a few more years, but its future is already decided by the cost of holding it together.